Perfect. Hello everyone, welcome to a great event, State of DevOps in Switzerland 2023. We are very excited to have you join us, very excited for the amazing speakers and program that we have slotted today, and thank you everyone for attending. Now we have a great program coming up, and also, most importantly, we want to hear from you as well. So if you have any questions for our speakers throughout the event, you can send your questions in through the chat, and then during the panel portion of the event, that is the time when we will get those answers from our speakers. So if you have any questions, send them in. We obviously have questions ready for the discussion as well, but if you have anything in your mind, send those questions in. Now, we're gonna kick things off quite soon, and we're gonna start with amazing program from Adrian, who's gonna be recapping the past DevOps reports and taking you through the journey of DevOps in Switzerland so far. So let's welcome Adrian to kick us off today.
Hi, I'm coming. So, very quickly, there we go. And let's start with this one, I guess. Yeah, there we go. Then you can switch whatever. Okay, there we go. So, welcome everybody. To people here in our awesome Vision Tower with air conditioning. So those of you outside Zurich or in Zurich but who didn't come, you're missing on very fresh air, so it's a great place. There's beer, plenty of very nice things. So let's talk a little bit about DevOps in Switzerland. I don't need my eyeglasses. This is live, okay? So there's a little bit of the usual junkiness that you see on TV. Now we can experience it at home. So let's talk a little bit about vision. Let's talk a little bit about who we are. We are the DevOps company. We've been in Switzerland since 2014. We are 51 visioneers here in Zurich, and we've been the first Swiss company certified Kubernetes certified provider, and we are also the first Red Hat business partner, premium business partner here in Switzerland. Speaking about partners, we are partnering with a lot of companies. You will recognize the names on this slide, of course, and we've got our own products. Apuyo Cloud is our own OpenShift 4 as a service platform that you can subscribe to and use. Project Scene and KDAP are KDAP in particular, we're very proud of it. It's a CNCF project, so we're very proud of it. But enough about this. I would like to know, I don't know if some in the audience or maybe online, we have people from Greece. You know what this is? It is pronounced Gnothi Safton. Gnothi Safton. I have learned this thanks to Google Translate. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. If there's people from Greece, please bear with me. What does this mean? Do you know what this means? So I'll give you a hint. It was written on the wall of the Temple of Apollonion in Delphi in Greece, and it's a concept that Plato and Heraclitus spoke a lot. Does it tell you anything? Maybe you know? No? It's okay? It means know thyself. This is the core idea of what we know. It's a core concept for Plato. Knowing yourself helps you define your limits, your boundaries, to go beyond those limits and to act ethically and with kindness around the world. And basically what we wanted to do with the DevOps in Switzerland was precisely that, to know ourselves. We wanted to know who we are, what do we do, where in Switzerland do we do DevOps? How do we do it? Is it hard? Does it work? Does it not work? These are the questions. And here are the 4 DevOps reports we've published so far. They look beautiful next to one another, the covers. It's really cool. I love this slide. So during the 4 years, so the first one we published in 2020, and we've been publishing them once a year ever since. The first one, the 2021, had data from 2018 and 2019. So there are 2 separate surveys that we gather in one. So it's very, very cool. And then we've been doing the incremental operations. During these 4 years or 5 years, a lot of things have happened, like a pandemic. I don't know if you've heard about the pandemic. There's also AWS in Switzerland. That's a big event as well, of course. For our industry, it's very big. There's another big event, which is that Kubernetes won. I mean, does anyone remember Docker Swarm or Apache Mesos? No, of course not. everybody's doing Kubernetes. We can say that Kubernetes won. So in these 5 years, a lot of things have happened in our industry, okay? So basically, here's a QR code for you in the audience. If you would like to download the DevOps report, please scan this code or use the URL vision.ch/DevOps report 2023. You can get it for free, and in that page you are going to find the links to the ones on the previous years, okay? So the agenda for today is very simple. I'm going to give a quick summary of our findings during these 5 years. Then I'm going to go in detail in demographics, processes, and culture, and then a little bit in the conclusion. I actually realized that I forgot one item in the middle, which is the real number 3 is technology, and I just realized this is the power of life, but that's how it goes. I'm going to talk about technology. Anyway, the executive summary. What have we learned during that time? One of the big things is that DevOps in Switzerland is here to stay. Companies are applying DevOps. They are very happy with it. The perception of DevOps is really good on the Swiss market, so that's really cool. There's been a consistent increase in IT budgets in the next 5 years, not only during the pandemic, even though that growth is stopping right now. There was an inflection point at some point in that curve, so right now we're going to see in the next few years how that's going to evolve. Businesses are very happy to move from private clouds to public and hybrid. So this is a very interesting move. We are abandoning a lot of data centers and so on. As I said, Kubernetes won. It's a very important point. The big winners in the technology wars, of course, is Linux, PostgreSQL, Python, and Argo CD. These are the technologies that people in Switzerland are using in their cloud native environments and in DevOps. And of course, container technology is the standard. More than 90% of all Swiss companies are using container technology at this point. In terms of Kubernetes flavors, OpenShift 4 is the leader in the market. This has been confirmed. It's been a steady growth for the past few years, but now it's absolute. It's an absolute winner. And managed Kubernetes is growing as well. So that means that people are very happy to use AKS, EKS, Rosa, Aro, and Exascale SKS as well, because it's very convenient. You get the full power of Kubernetes, and you don't have to actually manage the cluster yourself. And very important, Microsoft Azure is, according to our report, the leader in Switzerland. From all the hyperscalers, is the one with the biggest market share. So here's a very quick, too long, didn't read, of all the items that I just mentioned. So if you want to remember something, you can remember this. And thank you so much for attending my TED Talk. No, please, stay. Don't leave. It's okay. It's okay. There's one more thing coming. Actually, there's many more things coming, not only that. Let's talk a little bit about methodology. How do we gather this information? We've been using SurveyMonkey up until last year. This year, we started using Cervicate. We try to ask a similar set of questions every year. We sometimes change them a little bit, depending on the flavor and on the fashion of what's going on day by day. This is the number of responses we've had in the past few years. So we started at 250 responses between 2019 and 2020. Please remember that those were 2 different surveys, one in 2018, one in 2019. Then it went down right after the pandemic, and since last year the numbers are going up in no small reason, because we are actually doing price draws. So you can actually win things. In this case, you win a Digitech voucher of 200 francs or Apuyo Cloud credits as well of 200 francs. So thanks to that, that's actually brought the numbers up. We are very, very happy because we reached 120 responses this year. Our objective is to go higher, maybe 150 next year. So if you're watching this and you would like to participate, if you're watching this in 2024, please remember to sign up and to fill our survey. It only takes 5 minutes. So who's actually responding to this survey? Unsurprisingly, the biggest part of the industry that actually is responding is the software industry. Of course, there's a lot of companies doing software development here in Switzerland, but unsurprisingly, the following ones is finance, healthcare, and insurance. It's no surprise. This is Switzerland, after all. These are very big industries, but we see a lot of companies, and this is These graphic that you see here are the numbers of 2023. However, I'm only showing this one because the proportions in the previous years are quite similar. There hasn't been any change. Even when we had very few responses, we actually had the same distribution. So it actually makes total sense to give these numbers. We also have other industries like retail, agriculture, media. Because as they say, right, all the companies now are software companies. So everybody's doing software, software is eating the world, right? In terms of company size, we see more or less the same values every year. Just for comparison, you can see that we have a big chunk of between 35 to 42% of companies between 1 and 50 employees. That shows that in Switzerland, the small and medium enterprises are a very strong segment of the market. And then we have more or less stable repartitions from the other sizes. In terms of IT structure, this is an interesting trend, and this is something that it's been showing year after year since 2018, which is the fact that the separation between IT, between dev and ops is slowing, it's shrinking. That means that teams are more integrated, more combined, and this is a very interesting trend. We think it's very important because it reflects very deeply the ethos and the whole idea of DevOps, right? The IT budgets, so this is an interesting thing. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here. They've increased consistently, as I said, since 2018. The biggest increase was during the pandemic. Of course, there was a lot of investment to get people working from home and working online, so there was a spending there. However, we've asked in the 2022 survey, in the 2023 survey, excuse me, what were their forecasts for this year? And these are the interesting numbers. We see that there will be probably a reduction. The size in the pie chart of the decrease part has grown. So there might be a certain conservative thinking going on that maybe, given the current state of things in the world, we might have to shrink the budgets during this year. We'll see. We'll compare this graph with the results next year, but it's an interesting point of view. Let's talk about tools and technology. This is the item that I forgot on the index at the beginning. But anyway, very clear trend towards Linux. So Linux has been growing since 2018. Every time we ask the question, the number of companies using Windows and even Mac OS as a virtual machine, for example, is shrinking in production. This is not explicitly we ask for operating systems used in production environments, not in workstations. So if you develop your software in Mac, we don't care. Where do you run it? And of course, Linux is the overwhelming solution these days, and it's growing very strongly. In terms of programming languages, there are 5 programming languages that are always on the top 5, and it's not surprising. It's Python, Java, JavaScript, Go, and C#. These 5 programming languages are always on the top 5 during the 4 years. However, this year we had a very strong drop of PHP and very strong drop of Ruby, and a small but significant uptick for Rust and as well for Kotlin. So Kotlin, for those who don't know, it's a language for the JVM, who is getting very popular for creating backends. It's used to create Android apps as well. So there's people using Kotlin as well on the backend, and it's a very interesting trend to watch. The other ones, Python has been growing, Java, C#, very stable. These are very, very common languages that people use to create apps all the time. In terms of container technology, do you use container technology? That's the question that this graph is showing. The answer is overwhelmingly yes, and we go to 84% of yes and 11% of no, but it's planned this year, and it's been growing like this, and this we've seen like a very strong trend since 2018. Now, Kubernetes. Of all the flavors of Kubernetes, which one are you using? And here you can see these are the results of 2023 compared to 2022. Red Hat OpenShift 4 has dethroned SUSE Rancher. Red Hat OpenShift 3, of course, it's been phased out because it's no longer supported, it's end of life. And basically, Red Hat OpenShift 4 plus AWS EKS, Azure AKS, and Google GKE which are managed Kubernetes offerings by the big hyperscalers. They are growing very interestingly. So clearly, businesses, they like having their budgets, their clusters managed. It's a very good way to manage budgets. It's very convenient, and you have experts taking care of them. So this is an interesting trend as well. In terms of CI/CD tooling, of course, Terraform is the big tool that everyone is using, and GitLab, GitHub, Ansible, and Jenkins. Those 5 technologies, Terraform, GitLab, GitHub, Ansible, and Jenkins, are the big winners. That has been constant in the past 5 years. It hasn't changed much. However, this year we have a new entrant. In the 6th position, we have Argo CD. Argo CD is imposing itself as the tool for continuous integration and deployment. It is the thing. We use it internally as well for Project Sin, for example. We use it internally in Project Sin, and of course, it's absolutely amazing. It's fantastic, and it's one to watch because I think it's going to break into the big 5 next year. There's a lot of auxiliary backend services that you need to create your cloud-native apps, and of course, we ask people what do they use. Usually, what comes out very clearly is PostgreSQL, Nginx, Elasticsearch, and S3 storage. These 4 tools have been systematically in the top 5, on the top 4 of this classification. And then this year we see quite a significant drop of MariaDB. So this is something to follow. There's been a couple of problems of management inside of the MariaDB project in the last couple of months. So it's something to watch how it's going to fold out. I suppose that people are probably migrating to PostgreSQL, which is extremely popular in the country. In terms of cloud strategies, as I said at the beginning, public cloud is winning. It's eating the shares of hybrid cloud in particular and the private cloud. So people are moving into this kind of strategies. It's very interesting for them. The cloud providers, this is interesting. When they move to the public cloud, where do they go? Well, in Switzerland, overwhelmingly they go to Microsoft Azure. But AWS is growing. Very strong growth last year compared to the previous years. The one that is staying more or less stable is Google Cloud, even if it's been growing lately. It had a severe drop between 2020 and 2021. But clearly Azure, Switzerland, it's a very much Microsoft country in that sense. So clearly people are very happy with Microsoft Azure. There's also growth for a small provider, in particular Exascale, who we are partners with, and of course CloudScale CH has also had a significant, even a much smaller growth, but still they are very important in the local market, right? Now let's go to processes and culture, because all of that technology is very nice. The gist of the whole thing is about how people work together. That's something we are very interested in. And first of all, we ask people, what do you think of DevOps? Do you like it? Do you not like it? It's a very simple question. Overwhelmingly, people are very happy. To 85%, this has been pretty much stable in the past 5 years. It's a very similar reaction year after year. 85% of the people will tell you that they are very happy, with a small percentage who actually are not very happy. But you cannot please everyone. In terms of adoption, the adoption is growing, and this again is a trend that's been quite stable in the past 5 years. More and more companies are adopting it. They're very happy to move into the DevOps space, completely going full DevOps with all of the practices and everything that has to do to have a good DevOps team in your company. However, and this is much more important than the fact that you're implementing DevOps, is how autonomous are your teams? So this is a question we ask of our respondents, saying, can your teams provision and manage and configure services in production or not in production or at all? This is the question, saying what can they do by themselves without having to create a ticket and ask somebody from IT? Well, it turns out that the trend of being able to do everything in production by themselves, it's growing. That's the blue section, the deep blue section in this graph, full in production. So teams are able more and more to create, to provision, to deploy their services fully in production without going through tickets or support and so on. This autonomy is fantastic. We think this is one of the most important data points you can take from this presentation. It's about basically making your teams completely and fully independent, being able to innovate as free as they want and sometimes breaking things, but being able to roll them back and go forward and create new business value. So that's really cool. So to wrap up very quickly, what I've said is basically, this is the same slide at the beginning. DevOps is here to stay. IT budgets have consistently increased. Public cloud is preferred to private. Kubernetes has won. Linux, PostgreSQL, Python, and Argo CD are the big technologies that everybody's using in cloud native. Container technology is the standard. Red Hat OpenShift 4 and managed Kubernetes are the big choices that businesses are taking right now. Cheers. And Microsoft Azure is the leader in Switzerland, okay? So here you go. You can download all of this data right here using this QR code. Please feel free. It's completely free. We have the links in this page to the reports from the previous years. And yeah, I mean, we would love to hear from you. If you download the report and you have some comments or you would like to suggest questions for the next year, we're going to be doing this survey next year once again between January and April. So please let us know. We would love to hear from you. And yeah, thank you so much. My name is Adrian. My email, adrian@vision.ch. Please don't hesitate to send me a message. And yeah, let's get talking about DevOps. Thank you so much.
Amazing, amazing. Now let's get ready for our next speaker, Romano. Let's welcome you on the stage. And now I do want to remind you, if you have any questions for Adrian, or for example, as he said, suggestions for the next year's questions that you want to ask from the Swiss DevOps community, send them into the chat as well. Yeah, let's get you Romano in.
Perfect. So, thank you very much that we can talk here about DevOps. Now, we just saw that DevOps is here to stay. But how do you successfully scale DevOps? Let me quickly first introduce myself. My name is Romano Roth, and I'm the Chief of DevOps and a partner at Zülke. I joined Zülke 21 years ago as a junior .NET engineer. Then became an advanced software engineer, then an expert software engineer, an architect, and then a principal consultant. And what I saw during this time is that we want to continuously deliver value, that we want to automate things, and that we want to ensure quality. And that was always at my heart. So when the whole DevOps movement started, I jumped right on top of that, became one of the organizers of the DevOps Meetup Zurich. This is a monthly meetup we are doing here in Zurich in person, and the next one is next Wednesday, and it's about self-organized teams. And it's absolutely free, and you can join it. It will be awesome. And DevOps is really a hard topic of me, and that's why I'm also the president of the DevOps Days Zurich, which is a yearly conference which we are doing. The next one is next year in May. And the DevOps Days, this is a global movement, so in all of the big cities all around the world there are DevOps Days nowadays. And you can see DevOps is the topic that I love. That's also why I have my own YouTube channel with over 100 videos all around DevOps. I also post a lot and tweet a lot on the social media channels. So if you want to learn more about that DevOps thingy, then please join me on these channels. During my project work, I work with different companies in different industries and do their DevOps transformations. Now, what do I see when I join these companies? I see the following picture, which you can see here. The business, they have bright ideas. They are putting these bright ideas together with their clients into Jira tickets or into Word documents. And then they throw it over the wall of confusion to the development team. The development team looks at the Word document or the Jira ticket and say, yeah, if you want to have that, well, I can implement that. And they implement it. And then they throw it over the wall of confusion to the testing team. The testing team looks at the code or the executable, looks at what was written in the Jira ticket. it's not the same. They test something, it's green, and they throw it over the wall of confusion to the operation team. The operation team says, oh, this will never work in production, but somehow they are very good. Somehow they manage to get it to work, and then it goes to the business and to the customer, and they say, what is that? We cannot use that. And this is sort of a picture that I usually see, and you can see that there is a value stream in that infinity symbol, but it is completely broken by so-called walls of confusion. And these walls of confusion, they are coming from the silo organization and from the not being aligned between these silos. What you also can clearly see, there is quite a lack of excellence, especially software engineering excellence in there. Now, when we analyze that, where do these problems come from, then we can clearly see that in the past we did waterfall projects. We planned, designed, developed, deployed, reviewed, tested, and launched big chunks of software. Scope, budget, and time were fixed. Then, in the year 2000, some bright people said, no, this does not work for software. We need to go agile. So, we said time and budget is fixed, but the scope is now variable, and we were releasing the software in smaller increments, which we have done. But we are still working in projects, but our customers, they want to have a product. Now, to understand that a little bit more, I brought you this picture here. When we have a project, then a project always has a start point and an end point. It has a set of requirements that we want to deliver, and of course, a budget. So a project is all about maximizing the output, so maximizing the number of stuff that gets delivered, the number of features, the number of user stories. It's about, in that time frame, for that money, I want to have these number of features. So these 10 features, for example. Where on the other side, the product is something completely different. Because in a product, we want to understand the customer. We want to solve the problem of the customer. We want that customer adoption. So a product is all about the outcome that we want to achieve. It's about that one feature that solves the problem of the customer. So this is very important to understand, and DevOps is there to support that because it aligns your organization across that value stream, and with that you can continuously deliver value. And DevOps, that's a mindset, a culture, and a set of technical practices which allow you to do that. Now, when we talk about DevOps, then we also need to talk about the people in DevOps. And I know the term DevOps is not so good because it says development and operation. And of course, there are some smart people out there which say, yeah, we need to fix that. And security is very, very important for us, so we call it DevSecOps, which is development, security, and operation. And another group of people say, oh, no. Business is very, very important. They are giving the money, so we need to call it DevOps, which is business development and operation. But it's not so about these terms, and you can see it's about that product organization continuously delivering value together as a team, as a cross-functional team. So we would need a term like DevSec, Bits, Arc, Comp, QA, Ops, and I'm pretty sure I have forgotten someone. We can also call it DevXOps or DevStarOps, or we just call it DevOps. Because DevOps is really about bringing all the people, technology, and processes together to continuously deliver value. This is what DevOps is at its heart. Now, science has looked at DevOps. And I really love that book, Accelerate, and if you have not read it, read this book. It's really, really amazing. So scientists has looked at why some companies are not so good at delivering products and why some some companies are very good at delivering that. And they came up with this picture, which is also in that book, and this is just an amazing picture. It tells you what you need to do on the left side to achieve what on the right side. So if, for example, if you want to have a higher job satisfaction or higher identity or even less burnouts, then you need to do what is on the left side. And you also see the relations between them and what influences what. So really absolutely amazing picture, and it's very important. This is no consulting bullshit, this is pure science. So I also get usually asked the question, how can we measure the software delivery performance? And of course, the book has also an answer to that. And the most important thing is, it is not your team velocity and it's not the number of lines of code. It is the DORA metrics, which are these 4 metrics. It's the lead time for changes, deployment frequency, time to restore a service, and the change failure rate. So with these 4 metrics, you can measure the software delivery performance of your product development. The first is the lead time for changes, and this is the time it takes from code commit until something is in production. The important thing is the time which it takes before code commit, so the whole requirements engineering, budgeting, ideation, and so on and so on. This is statistically not really significant. That's why they say only, science says only at code commit there is a statistic relevance in that. So when you look at the elite, then this is in less than an hour, which means you commit your code and within less than an hour your code is in production. The second one is deployment frequency. That is how often your organization can deploy into production. And here it's important that in a DevOps context that we are distinguishing between deployment and release. A deployment is bringing the code, the compiled code, into production, but with the feature toggle off. And releasing it is switching on the feature toggle. So the deployment frequency of Elite is on demand. They can have multiple deployments per day. The third one is time to restore a service. This is how long it takes when you have a failure in production to recover from that failure. Elite is here in less than an hour. You can again come up with your services. And then there is the change failure rate, which is the percentage of deployment causing a failure in production. And again, here you see the Elite is between 0% or 15%. So these 4 metrics are the four metrics you can use, which are scientifically proven to measure your software delivery performance. Now, there is the State of DevOps report out there. This is a report that is done since 2013, and it's sort of the big brother of the State of DevOps report Switzerland. And here you can see the results of the 2019 report. They are comparing here the companies which are not doing DevOps versus the companies which are doing DevOps. And the report says that companies which are doing DevOps, they have a 208 times more deployment into production. They have also 106 times faster lead time. They are 2,604 times faster in restoring a service, and they also have a 7 times lower change failure rate. Now, in 2021, the whole system has increased, so the companies were getting faster and faster. And also, when you now look at the State of DevOps report Switzerland, then this is also shown in there with the graphics. And when you summarize what the State of DevOps report Switzerland is showing you is that when you are doing DevOps, then you get a faster time to market, more value for money, higher quality, and higher customer satisfaction. And the interesting thing is, when you ask a CIO what he needs to have, then it's very interesting that exactly this is the things that a CIO wants to have. Usually they need to deliver more with less money, and they need to do it faster and with a higher quality. So now we saw DevOps is really a good thing, and we also saw that in the State of DevOps Report Switzerland that we have roughly 1/3 smaller companies, but we also have 2/3 of the companies which are bigger. Now you need to scale DevOps. Doing DevOps alone is already a challenge, but scaling DevOps is even more challenging. How does DevOps look like in many companies? We can see in the State of DevOps Report Switzerland that roughly 50% of the companies have combined it and the other ones didn't. So the other ones have something like this. They have the dev teams and a big wall of confusion between them, and then the ops teams. This is what not DevOps can look like. Now, when you are going to do DevOps, then there are companies which say, yeah, I want to have these benefits, but we don't want to change that much, so let's create a DevOps team. And then you have that picture there. You just introduce a new silo, a DevOps silo, and you are just building up more walls of confusion. And I think when I look at the State of DevOps Report Switzerland, this is exactly this 1% which is then negative. If you have such a picture, this can lead to a negative feeling when you are doing DevOps, when you have that DevOps silo. So what does DevOps then look like? It looks like this. You have product teams, and here you can see Dev and Ops, but I mean really all of the people in there, and they are working together on a product. And when you have that, then you can see also in the State of DevOps report that roughly 1/3 of the companies are in this area, but with that you are also introducing new challenges, because each one of these teams is now building their product, and this can lead to some inconsistencies, redundancies. You also potentially have a lack of operational experience and quite a complexity in tools. You also need to learn the cloud or not the cloud or a mixed version of it. So it gets tough. Talking about the tools, we of course need to talk here about CI/CD, which is continuous integration and continuous deployment. Now, I usually say, look, this is one part of it, but in the beginning you have the continuous exploration. So the whole ideation, budgeting, requirements engineering, that's very important. This is also part of your pipeline. And in the end, you have the release on demand, because you want to toggle on and off the feature toggle, so you are releasing on demand. And the whole thing is your continuous delivery pipeline. And it is very important to understand that this is your continuous delivery pipeline. It's not only about continuous integration and continuous deployment. It's all the tools you need to deliver your product. And here you just see an example of what such a continuous delivery pipeline can look like. Of course, potentially your tools look completely different. And these tools need to be maintained, and they also need to be integrated with each other. So that's quite a complexity that is coming up for a product team. Now, of course, there are big vendors out there which say, we got you, GitLab, GitHub, or Azure DevOps. They say, we have everything for you, so we got you. Yeah, when you take a close look, then you need to replace some of the inadequate parts. You also see that some of the tools that they are using are not their own tools, so it's also third-party tools. But of course, they have nice integration, so all good. But again, the cognitive load is quite high with these tools. So when you want to do modern software development, and you can see that with this infinity symbol, then you need to go through all of these stages, and I just pointed out what you need to do in order to build in quality and in order to really do great products. And this is everything you need to do as software developers. Now, you can already see that the cognitive load is quite high on the teams. It even is higher because when I usually see many companies, the onboarding time of new team members is 1 month to 3 months until they have access to all of the tools, until they are really working on the project. Also, when you want to order, for example, a new Kubernetes cluster, or you want to have a new database or a new virtual machine, it takes quite a long time until you get it, and usually you then need to configure it according to a document. And then the whole security part or the quality part comes in. Also, when you scan for vulnerabilities, you will see a lot of vulnerabilities, which you then just in the end skip, and it just means that you have a low quality and you don't have any standards. So, huge cognitive load in there. So, now what are we doing? I mean, can you really scale DevOps? Is that possible? Can we architect for continuous delivery and scale it up? Yes, you can, but we need to step a little bit back and look at the broader picture. What we want to have is sort of a digital factory that we are building up. And I don't mean a factory where you as a developer are just always doing the same things. I mean a modern factory where all of the boring stuff is completely automated away, and that you as a developer can focus on the real stuff, on the feature development. You want to have sort of such a picture which is fully automated and where you get a lot of telemetry. Now, how do you do that? This is by introducing platform engineering, because that scales your DevOps to multiple product teams. So what you will have is you will have multiple product teams which are doing DevOps, and you can see that with the ops in there. So they really build and run and also operate their product. In the middle, you have the platform team, and this is not just another silo that you are creating. This is a team that delivers a product so that the product teams can work. And I will show you that in another way, and this is how it looks like when you have a platform engineering team. So the platform engineering team creates a platform with API gateway, CI/CD, Kubernetes cluster, repositories, synthetic test data, so everything that is needed so that the product teams can work on their product and can focus on the product development. This means that the platform team, they are enabling the product team to do DevOps. The product team themselves, they are generating value for the clients, and the platform team creates a product which is consumed by the product teams, so they generate value for their product teams. So with that, and I love this picture here, with that you are bringing, by introducing platform engineering, DevOps into your company. You can clearly see with platform engineering, you are building a platform which is sort of the foundation of your digital factory, which enables your teams to do DevOps. And this is exactly the way how you can scale DevOps. And as you can see out of that, we are really entering now the age of industrialization of software development. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Romano, as well. So now we're going to be moving on to the panel portion of today. So let's do we have 10 seconds or so to arrange the chairs, to get everyone to the stage and so forth. So stay tuned, and if you have any of those questions, now is the perfect time to send them in as well. So let's. Perfect. Okay, now we are ready for the panel. We have our great panelists, which you already know since they just spoke here. So we have our great panelists here ready for us. Sorry for the mic we have already, because the first question is going to come from the live audience here at the Vision Tower. So I'm going to now walk over there and give the mic to our lovely attendee, and they're going to ask the first question of the panel. Get ready, speakers.
It's okay.
Hello, everyone. My question is, as you have stated in your presentation, and there's a tendency to scale DevOps. And to scale DevOps, we need, as I understand, as I get it right, we need platform engineers. And to scale the DevOps process consistently and accordingly with the code or the executables, we need a platform. So how can you differentiate the positions? Like there are DevOps engineers, SREs, platform engineers, and you say that the future of DevOps is the platform engineering.
Mm-hmm. That's
Thank you.
Sort of correct, but also a little bit incorrect. So the future of DevOps is still doing DevOps. But what you will see is that teams will do DevOps. So product teams will do DevOps. So they will build and run their products. But on the other side, you will see a new team, which is the platform team, which provides the platform where the product teams can work on top of that. That's an important. It's just another team which provides a platform so that the product teams can do DevOps. So it's sort of the foundation. And you also brought up SRE. When you look at SRE, it's site reliability engineering. That's a person, but also it's the site reliability engineering which you do. And here, what I can clearly see is this is something which you have in larger companies where you have products with high availability, massive amounts of user and massive amounts of data. So there you use site reliability engineering. If you don't have that, then you don't need to do site reliability engineering. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Oh, another question from the audience. Good. Okay, I'll run over there. Meanwhile, if Adrian has anything to add, you can obviously add something.
Yeah. Well, here at Vision, we call ourselves the DevOps company. So we use that approach a lot. So we have, for example, the same platform that we offer to our customers, which is Apoyo Cloud. We use it internally for literally everything we use. All the internal systems we run, with very few exceptions, they run inside of Apoyo Cloud. And we have a team taking care of Apoyo Cloud. Their job is to make sure that it works not only for everybody else, but also for us. The idea is that we own, we eat our own dog food, as Joel Spolsky would say. So that is basically, for us, it would be the platform team, because it enables a whole lot of things, including actually myself and Dan in our team in marketing. Because, for example, the slides you saw are actually a web page running on Apoyo Cloud. So basically, I also use it for even those small things. And having a team that takes care of that, it enables the growth, and you can go to another level. We can start speaking about the different abstraction level. And that is the interesting thing about this approach of scaling, having your team that takes care of platform engineering. It enables you to go to a new abstraction level. Yeah.
So following on from that, so I've helped build a number of kind of platform engineering, both practices and custom platforms at several kind of large enterprises. What has come up in obviously the last year or so is like open source projects like Backstage and things like that for especially Dell portal type pieces and some of the other components, kind of new tooling stacks that are appearing as part of that move towards platform engineering. Do you have any comments about the maturity of some of these? Where do you see some of that going in terms of, well, it doesn't have to be Backstage specifically, but some of those newer tooling and things, and do you see things kind of starting to shift from like custom builds to some kind of standardization across like on certain specific projects?
As you said, there are more and more such toolings coming up, and as you said, you as a company, you have a choice of what you can do. First of all, you can just buy one of these platforms and you just implement one of them. There are now also platforms coming up which you can buy. So, for example, FE-Code has also now released a platform, but I don't know about the majority of it because it's not freely available. Also with Backstage, it is nice, but you need to do quite a lot in the background, but it's of course free. And what you can do is you can buy one of these platforms, or you can build sort of your own platform. And I think at the moment these are really your two choices which you can do. What I can see is that many companies have difficulties building up their own platform, because what you see is that you need to have quite a lot of knowledge when it comes to usually you have a Kubernetes cluster behind it. We just saw that. And you also need to know quite a lot about security. You need to know a lot about network zones, about infrastructure. So that's quite heavy stuff. And in my opinion, when you want to build it by yourself, then you need to really have a very good team building that up. My recommendation would be to build it by your own, because at the moment I don't see that one platform which is really, really good. Usually, you could argument that a GitLab or a GitHub is already such a platform. In my opinion, it's only part of the platform. As I pointed out, you have sort of a continuous delivery pipeline where you also want to have Jira in there, or other tools that you would like to have in there. And usually a platform like GitHub does not support that.
Actually, I was thinking about the fact that there's a lot of tooling that is coming into place little by little. So you have VS Code that runs on a browser that opens up, for example, OpenShift dev spaces. So you can have your development environments inside of an OpenShift cluster. And these kind of things are coming together. Actually, in the last Red Hat Summit, Red Hat announced very strongly two things, which is artificial intelligence with Watson, IBM Watson, but as well Backstage. So in the coming months, there's going to be an integration between OpenShift and Backstage, which is very interesting. So clearly, we are going into that direction. But as Romano said, it's not only the technology, it's also the people and the processes, right? So in terms of people, you're going to need internal developer evangelists. You are going to need internal, maybe a Moodle where you can have a tutorial on how to create a project in our infrastructure. It doesn't matter where it runs. It would be probably Kubernetes, as you say. But you need all of that, plus the processes, saying, oh, you want to create a new Go project. Well, go here, click here. This is your Git project. Now you can do this and that. all of that, it's work, it requires documentation, it requires testing, it requires a team that takes care of that, because it's the real cost of maintenance of all of that code. So I think we're going to go there, definitely, in those two directions, right? AI, computer-aided coding, that's coming, that's already there to a large degree, and company platforms. Now, it's going to represent an investment. There's going to be a lot of money to be spent. It's a very interesting business opportunity, I think. But backstage is interesting, but it doesn't offer all the assets. I mean, it's only technology. You miss people and processes still. So, yeah.
Good. Any more audience questions from here, from on site? Okay, everyone's looking at me like, no.
Excellent questions.
Yes,
really,
exactly.
So far, really good start. Thank you.
Exactly. So now the virtual side, you have to pick it up. The on-site already asked questions, but no worries. We have a few more questions from our side as well. So to kick us off there, I have the questions here. In your opinion, we've spoken DevOps in general, now we mentioned Backstage and all of these kind of things, but going back to the Swiss ecosystem, why do you think DevOps has become such an established standard in Switzerland particularly?
Well, I will take this one to begin with. The thing is the following. Switzerland, and I say this as somebody who immigrated in the country. I was born somewhere else. Doesn't matter. Some of you know, but doesn't matter. But the thing is that what I saw in the country from the time that I've been here is that it's a country that it was very strongly based into hierarchies. So the Swiss culture is very hierarchical. That's why there's such a love for the military service and so on. It's such a popular institution in the country. So for a long time, and I'm speaking for probably 200 years since the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution, the business models that have been applied were modeled on top of the military institution, right? So that means that you end up at the beginning of the 90s when the new laws of globalization and so on start coming to Switzerland. It was a crisis, a big crisis, to the point that some companies disappeared. I don't know if some of you remember Swissair. Well, there used to be a company called Swissair, and it went down terribly for various reasons. But one of the big reasons, and I say that because I worked at Swissair for 4 years, is that it was a very strong hierarchy with very well-defined lines of decision, but were very slow. They were very slow to react to the new laws of the aerospace market in the 90s that was completely upended by newcomers like EasyJet and so on. They couldn't compete. They literally disappeared. So I think the shock of seeing Swissair going down in such a dramatic way, and now Credit Suisse, and we see that these ways of thinking don't work anymore. So I think Switzerland realized, rightfully so, to say, okay, we need to change, right? We need to do things differently. DevOps, Agile, they all bring, now we have sociocracy, holacracy, we have a lot of, and we have somebody who knows very much what I'm talking about, sociocracy, right here in the audience. It's very well a way for the Swiss people to say, okay, let's change, let's divert, let's go to another dimension, let's work differently. I think it was needed from the historical perspective, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good. On my side, I'm now since 21 years in this industry, and when I joined Zülke first as a junior .NET engineer, I was in a project where we were creating a layout tool for steam turbines, so for really big power plants. And the interesting thing there is we worked in a DevOps approach there. And that was quite interesting because we had everyone in one team. So there were the developers in there were requirements engineers in there were project managers in there, and everybody worked as a team. We as developers, we were operating the code. We were also testing our code. So there were no walls of confusion, and also the client was very, very near. after that, I could clearly see that we were moving away from that. Why? Because technology was getting more and more complicated, and I also saw that many companies said, hey, we need to deal with that amount of complexity. Also, the applications were getting bigger and bigger. And so many of these companies said, okay, we now need to divide and conquer, and this goes exactly in your direction. They said, okay, we need to have the business analysts there, we need to have developers there, and the testers over there. And this is how they managed to do it. But then, as you also pointed it out, the whole industry, software development, accelerated massively. And this was something where the organizational structure was really lacking behind. And this is why nowadays the DevOps adoption is that big. Companies don't have a chance to deliver that fast software when they have these silos. That's what they see.
Good, so they have to adapt or potentially die away. Yeah. Harsh, but very true. So then going to another topic, I think, which is very connected to this one as well. I think everyone knows that there are some economical turbulences happening right now and so forth. So how have you seen the impact of IT budget changes to DevOps practices, or in general the economic climate? How is it affecting DevOps in Switzerland or globally?
So what I see right now, my view at this point is that we are going to not enter a period of recession. I don't think it will go that harsh, but there's going to be tightening of budgets. And that means that many companies are going to cut down on cloud. So all of the solutions, there was an edition of Vision Timer where we basically laid out quite a few tools about cost management for Kubernetes, for AWS, and so on. Because this is going to grow, this is going to be very big. Companies that help others understand how and where are those dollars going? In which region do we have those virtual machines that are draining our bank account? It's a very simple question, and for many companies it's very complicated. Some cloud providers like Exascale make it very easily. This one of the killer features for Exascale, in my opinion, is in the dashboard you can see the amount of money you have in your account at this moment. I mean, it's so clear and so good. I think we have to go into that direction. That means that many companies are going to adapt. For example, there's one very well-known case right now, which is when you follow David Heinemeier Hansson and everything that's going on with Hey.com and Basecamp, and they are very vocal about the fact that the cloud, it's a big scam. So they are going back, they literally bought Dell servers, they are moving everything in-house, and they're very happy. So what I take from that is that they are analyzing the whole market, and they pick the solution that works the best for them in terms of management. Let's put it the words as it was. People, processes, and technology. They have the people to manage the tools, yes. They have the technology, of course. They've written Basecamp, the old version and the new one, which they run in parallel. And the processes, they have it as well, because they know how to run it and so on. So if it works for them, that doesn't mean that it works for everyone. The lesson there is adapt, learn, take a step back, look at the options. Maybe the cloud is the best option for you, but maybe not. Maybe having a platform engineering team, it's the best option for you. Maybe not. It all depends. There are no golden rules. There's no a silver bullet here in any case. But I think the most important part is that given the current economic climate, take a step back, calm down, don't follow the hype, look at the numbers. Does it make sense to go back to a hybrid or maybe private cloud? Do it.
Absolutely. I cannot agree more on that. But I think, and what also I can experience, especially now globally, is some of the companies are reducing their IT budget. Also, what you can see, they also spend quite a lot of amount of money. what I can see is it goes more into efficiency. So being more efficient, and this goes exactly in what you said. They are stepping back and looking at what does make sense, what doesn't make sense, which products should we follow, or which products should we close down. That's what I can clearly see.
Very good, and actually connected there. If some products are kind of, more important or less important and so forth, what do you see are the most popular technologies used by DevOps teams in Switzerland, and which are the ones that will kind of make the cut from there, essentially?
I mean, there was a slide that I've talked about, and basically, in my opinion, Argo CD is going to break into the top 5, maybe top 3 next year, because everybody's using it, everybody's talking about it. It's so well done, it's so useful, there's plenty of documentation now and tutorials and everything. It's a success. I mean, I think it's a triumph of one of the, probably, I will tell you more. I have the hunch that there's a lot of teams, and I don't know what you think, Romano, but I think that there's a lot of teams choosing Kubernetes because there is Argo CD. The same way people would buy a PC to run Lotus 123, they are using Kubernetes because they can run Argo CD. It's like the killer app. What do you think?
Definitely, it's absolutely the killer app when it comes to continuous deployment. What I can also see is, of course, to answer the question, in Kubernetes is all over the place. I was a little bit surprised that OpenShift is that high, the adoption. From my experience, where I work, I see it's more going into the direction of AKS on Azure, but and a little bit moving away from OpenShift. But I was quite surprised. What I can agree on is GitLab is getting more and more traction in the Swiss market. Right behind is, of course, GitHub. So these are sort of the tools that the people love at the moment.
Very true, very true. And now, switching to the topic of value that DevOps brings to companies, do you have any good examples in mind, or general examples of when DevOps has really brought in really good business value or general value to companies?
Yeah, I mean, for example, I worked for a private bank. And in that private bank, we were working directly inside the private bank, and the development was quite slow, and you needed to work on virtual machines, and when you were typing in some stuff, you could see your typing coming up, and sometimes you also some of the characters were just not going through, and this was really painful for the development team, and we even needed to also put some people out of this environment because they were nearly becoming a burnout in such an environment. So you had quite a toxic environment, and what we did there is we said, hey, look, this is not how it can go, and also in that area, Dev and Ops were completely separated teams, and we said we want to change that, and we moved the whole code out of this private bank, and this was already quite shocking, and that we can do that. What we needed, of course, to do is remove all the confidential data out of the source code, which never should have been in the source code, but there were, of course, some confidential data in there. So we cleaned that whole thing up. We created synthetic test data. We created simulators for the interfaces and moved it to the cloud. And there we were then able to much more deliver value to that client. And we also measured that, and we were 25% faster. And I mean, to be 25% faster is quite an amazing thing, and the whole movement into the cloud took us roughly 3 months with 2 people, and this is quite an amazing business case. And from there on, this enabled us to do quite some amazing things, like having distributed development, going into other locations, hiring new people, and in the end, it also was the enablement for us to bring dev and ops in there closer together. And nowadays, they are really going into this direction of continuously delivering value into also their production system. To that time, they had only 3 months deployment cycles. And when they deployed on such a 3 months deployment cycle, there was always a full deployment weekend where all the management was in there, and everybody was very, very nervous about how to deploy all of that and about the risk. And nowadays they have deployment cycles of 2 weeks, and this is really awesome. And the risk has massively reduced, and they can continuously deliver value. So that's really an awesome story.
Sounds good.
Yeah, basically, you and I started more or less at the same time, and I also started as a .NET developer. It's funny, and I remember 20 years ago, I was working for a very big company in Switzerland that shall remain nameless, but it was one of the biggest SAP implementations in the planet, and they were having all of these apps that we had to create in .NET, satellite apps with message queues and whatnot. And I remember that there was a formal process of acceptation of each new version of this application that we were working on, which involved, and I kid you not, written forms that had to be signed by system architects, security, database engineers, message queue managers, the project manager, the budget owner, and so on and so forth. This was around 2004, 2005. And it was a huge process. To get a new version, we had to go and actually do presentations, show the code, sign forms. It was a process. And I think we released twice in a year. It was as simple as that. No container whatsoever. It was not even a virtual machine. These were actual hardware machines somewhere in the private cloud. And basically, we didn't even call it cloud back in those days. And it was absolutely a horrendous process. And now I'm very happy to know, this was in Switzerland, by the way, so it was clearly the way to go 20 years ago. I'm very happy to see our customers at Vision that basically are able to come to us and say, how can we go faster? How can we deploy this faster? Can you help us with these CI/CD pipelines? Can you help us install these code verification tools? Can we do security automated? Can we do this kind of checks like that? Can you help us with Sneak? Can you help us with this and that tool? Can we do that on GitLab? So there's a more focus on saying, we cannot work like this anymore. We have to change. And that, for me, has been a fantastic realization.
I think I have also another story. I'm also from the private bank, and it was sort of in the same direction. They had these 3 months deployment cycles, and these deployments were very, very, very painful for them because they were really, really nervous. And there was a meeting I can remember, which I was also in, and they said, we need to change that. We really need to change that. I think we need to have 6 months deployment cycles. Because 3 months, this is just too fast. And I said then, look, I think you are absolutely right, but perfect. I would say, let's do 5-year deployment cycles. I think this is far better.
Anyway, that's how it goes.
Good suggestion, yeah. Good, and then we actually have a comment from the virtual audience, or a question. So they ask, any comments on AWS growth in Switzerland, or you can obviously comment on the changes between all the hyperscalers, for example.
Well, I mean, AWS and Google Cloud were the first ones to have a region here in Switzerland, and Swiss businesses are very keen to have their data and applications running inside of their borders. Probably more than other countries in Europe. I mean, it's a very strong thing here. We want to have the data here, which is understandable, and there are very good options like CloudScale and Exascale, so it's not the options that are lacking. There's Green as well, and Infomaniac, and so many others. the thing is that Microsoft was very smart in moving into the country, because this was, historically, it's a very much Microsoft country. Lots of businesses are running Office since the 90s, Visual Basic apps back in the 90s. I remember a lot of companies doing Visual Basic 6 applications with a SQL Server database behind. So they were very smart at saying, okay, you want to go to the cloud? Hey, we have our own. It's as simple as that. It's a very simple value proposition. AWS is a very interesting option for startups. So a lot of Swiss startups, beginning with, for example, the application. There's this application for doing your groceries called Bring, very popular in Switzerland. They run their backend in AWS. They were running it in AWS in another region. Maybe they're running it in the Swiss region right now. I don't know. But of course, AWS, when AWS moves somewhere, it's not even ripples, it's an earthquake, right? It's a very strong thing. So I pay a lot of attention to what's going on. They are very proactive, they're very good, they're organizing a lot of events to showcase their technology, to educate developers. I think that's brilliant what they're doing. So clearly, I think Microsoft Azure has now a real competition in the country, my opinion.
Absolutely. It's all about that competition. And what you could see in the past is that the banks, they are now moving into the Azure cloud. And that was sort of the starting point when the whole cloud movement started. And this was something that AWS saw, and that's why they also moved now into Switzerland. Of course, many of the Swiss banks are now going into Azure, but of course there are insurance companies which also want to go to the cloud. And I think this is where now AWS is trying to get more and more of these companies into their cloud.
Good, good. Any comments or questions from the audience? Anyone want to say something? Okay, no first part, but you can think about it. I'll ask again soon. Then a question as well. So what is the most common challenge that you see people facing when they try to leverage DevOps, and what is the solution for that? Might be a bit of a hard question to answer quickly, but if something comes to mind.
I mean, one of the obvious things that you can see is when you want to align yourself across the value stream, it means to break down the silos. It's not really necessary that you are going to break down the silos. You can also create virtual organizations. But if you want to be really effective in doing that, you will break some silos, which means that some of the management personnel is not anymore of needed.
Okay, no worries. So apparently the audio wasn't working there, even though the video was working. So again, technical difficulties, sorry for that, apologies. Now we are back online as far as I know. So now we saw your comments. We laughed here on site also for the SRE problem comment, very funny as well. And then we have 7 minutes left of our program, so to say. And then soon we're gonna get a recap from Romano to the question that got cut off there. And then I know I will get back to Max your question, so you're gonna get an answer to your question next up, so stay tuned for that. But Romano, a recap from your side.
Exactly. So what are the biggest problems that I see when we are doing DevOps adoption? And as you could see, you need to align all the people, which means you are going to reorganize. You can either do that virtually. This is perhaps the starting point. But in the end, what you will do, you will also reorganize yourself or your teams, which means that some of the management personnel are not needed anymore. And you pointed it out, we are quite hierarchical in Switzerland. So there is a manager for everything in Switzerland, which means some of the management positions are redundant in the end. And I also spoke to many managers, and many managers, they wanted to go up in the career. And suddenly, with this new DevOps approach, they are sort of redundant, and they then they don't see how their career can progress. And this is really heavy stuff, and it's really difficult. And what you can see, some of them are very supportive, of course, but also some management staff is not so supportive, and then you have these arguments, and it gets difficult with the DevOps adoption. That's what I see.
Good. Adrian, you want to add something?
I think it goes into the same direction. It's just my perspective is the following: is that it all goes down to trust. Do you trust the people you hired in your company? Because you hired these people in your company to solve problems that you don't know how to solve. That's why you hire an expert. Why is it so hard if you hire somebody to just trust them? Just trust the person. You know? It's like, and yes, things might go wrong, like everything in life. I mean, you cook fried eggs, and maybe the yolk will break.
Yeah. Or the camera can fail.
Then you can make another fried eggs, and then the next day it will be better. It's a very simple example, but if you do not trust that maybe things might go good, then you will have a self-fulfilling prophecy, in the sense that, yes, things went bad as I told you. Well, if you had said that things went well and then they went well, you would have said, as I told you, things went well. Let's change the perspective. We need a doses of optimism, we need a doses of trust in the teams, to basically tell them, okay, you know what, go on, do your thing, I trust you. That's why I hired you. Do your thing, right? And that enables the processes, that enables the people, and that enables the technology. Because you are going to choose technology that enables trust. You are going to choose people who you trust, and you're going to have processes that are trustworthy. And I think that concept for me summarizes a lot of DevOps. Yeah.
Good. And now, Max, we're going to get to your question. They say, in my experience, driving change in a team deals a lot with the ego of individuals, from leadership to developers. What is your best strategy to help convince these people to change to a DevOps spirit?
Wow, that's a good one.
Good one?
So, I mean, there's the easy answer, which is that there's no I in we. But I don't like it. It's too blunt. I think it's a sum of a lot of I's. So both the letter and the I's. So it's important to keep in mind that you cannot get rid of the egos completely. So we all have agendas for our careers, for our lives, and so on. It is not unthinkable to have those agendas present when you work on a team. However, it is very important for the health of the team, to avoid burnout and so on, that the people you trust to have around you will play the game and leave behind a little bit of their egos. And it is not unthinkable, once again, to expect in a team to have people who will make mistakes and will say, yeah, you know what, I'm sorry, I fucked up. Oh, sorry, maybe we shouldn't say that. But you know what I mean. It's saying it is okay, it must be okay to have failure. There has to be a resistance to failure, and to say, okay, you know what, you can have a bad day. It's okay, let's move on. Let's try not to do this again. Let's just move on. Let's learn from this. I think the important part is to create teams with people who are able to leave a little bit of their egos at the door.
Yeah. What I see when you have that, I usually do some exercises. What you have then is that the team does not really have a vision or a mission or values. And in my opinion, it's very important that a team has a clear vision where they want to go, and also a mission, and their values really written down. And I think that's quite an important thing. And what I also usually do with these teams is come up with them, and everybody can state what they want to achieve in this team. Because transparency makes everything clearer. And if you have a person in there who would like to make a career or would like to work directly on the Kubernetes cluster, then it makes things clearer. And you also don't have these plans in the head of people which are never outspoken, and then you have a lot of conflicts. And the second thing is, everybody is doing Agile, and retrospectives are a very powerful instrument when done right. And also the daily stand-ups, if they are not a status meeting and really are a team meeting, it's quite important. So in the end, the Scrum Master role is a very crucial role, and you really need to have good and experienced Scrum Masters, which then also can guide and coach and mentor such a team.
Perfect. And I think that was a really good, big, but really good answers from both of you. Big question, but big, good answers from you to end us and wrap us up today, because we are out of time. And great that we had so many good questions from the audience, both virtual as well as on site. That's always lovely to see. Thank you so much to our speakers. Amazing sessions and really good panel answers as well. But that's it from us this time, and see you in future events as well.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.